Hey guys, how's it going? Well, tonight I'd like to try to look at the second part to the imagination station there, with the sensory overlap, to kind of take a look at the senses. I'll look at that part about the reaching the like a magnetic state that you can feel in a minute. But before I get like to the complexity part, I'd kind of like to take a look at a couple ideas, kind of with what I kind of feel is like where the starting point is. It's not the starting point. I mean, the senses were always going on your whole life, but taking kind of a look at where we each made a choice to kind of have this disconnect, not necessarily knowing it was going to do that, but in our chase for the things we wanted as far back as when we were toddlers, basically. Just before that, the choice was made. By then, we were already living to this new choice. But if you look at, say, a baby, right, laying on the floor, either face up or face down, because you don't want the head to get flats, right? So they have to roll them around. Sorry, I'm gonna laugh, but in case if you had flathead, sorry, but that's why they do it. Anyway, gravity at this point is a constant. Now, our thoughts are the constant, but back then, we didn't. I don't know what our thought processes were going on. I think we were so locked into our five senses at that point that was everything. Each one of those five senses was a blinding amount of stimulus, and it created a large amount of growth in a very short period of time. And as gravity was just making us stronger, during that, our senses were feeding us all the information about the world around us. It didn't matter if people were telling us stuff yet or not. We weren't making memories yet. But if you fast forward the clock just a little bit, it's not much longer before you're a toddler, and by now, Oreos are good, popsicles are great, chicken nuggets are fantastic, and you want to hear that song a million times, right? By now, pretty much every choice you make is, in essence, living to please your senses. And it's a very different spectrum that you're looking through when you're living in you're living through your senses. Those are happening at the constant now. You're never going to be more open than that. And look how open their minds are. Everything is just learn, because they're wide open. But then once you're living to please your senses, it's a very different motivation for all the decisions you make. And once we each make that choice, pretty much everything in society backs that up. So once that's cemented and you're finally then making memories, you already don't remember it. Your senses are like a mythical thing that everyone has, but no one really believes in. They just think that's all there is when you have just senses, that's it. So, I think for each of us that goes back quite a ways. And if you take a look at it, you can see that in the world. And, there's a lot of rabbit holes you can go down with that. I'm trying to stay on the positive and just look at the sense part of it. Right. So I think after this, I'll get to the projection part of it. But I figure the best way to kind of describe it is, because because I don't normally like give it words, so hopefully I don't sound too random. But in the first one, the imagination station, it kind of just showed a highlight on the imagination. But in the usage of this, when I want to center myself and just jump into the sense, sometimes my thoughts are going on. I got something from the day I'm trying, not to think about. It's pushing its way in. It's hard to keep your mind clear. So that's where I'll use the imagination part, and I'll picture like the sand. And I'll just draw a circle in the sand and kind of keep my mind focused on that. And I'll picture a wave wash up and wash the circle away. And then try to just picture the sand and hold that in the imaginative side as a way to kind of keep my thoughts still for a little bit. If something comes in again, just draw into the circle, picture it wash away, try to hold it. And I found that if you don't feed into your thoughts continuously, like they'll slow down and give you some little time in between a thought where you can have it kind of more in the distance so it's not as loud. So while that's happening, I'm just kind of trying to keep that thought clear. A way to keep your main focus in the driver's seat, I'll just start to feel my chest so I can feel my lungs breathing, heart beating. And I'll just close my eyes and take in one less sense and just worry about hearing and touch. I'm sure smell and taste can be worked on too to add to this, but I'm not really jumping into all of the senses. I mainly just think about the first three there. They're the most apparent, so that's what I focus on. I can hear, I can feel, and that helps to center me. I can feel my heartbeat, lungs breathing, weight of the clothes on my skin, the hair, my arms, like all these sense. I'm not making myself feel them. My sense is already feeling all these things. But a lot of times they're outside of my awareness, just like you don't normally feel your heart beating. But then you can quickly, and then once you do, it's right there. And you can do something else, but at the same time, you can still feel it, right? So that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to acquire the sense, what it's telling me. Hold that, and then like add to it. Like say with the hearing, I hear my full range around me, everything I could hear normally. And then start to pull in smaller sounds, and all that kind of helps to kind of widen your awareness of self. So, I'll feel everything that I can feel. I'll hear everything that I can hear. And when it gets to sight, I kind of open my eyes a little bit, and I try to kind of have, unfocus, so that everything has kind of the same depth of field, and just kind of take that all in as the sense of sight, right? Just to kind of get these things all overlapped. But usually by the time I start to get centered into the touch and the sound, and I bring in, I can feel it kind of starting from my core, the center, it kind of swells outward. So then I typically hold my hands. I'm not, they're about, torso wide, right? But out. Arms are kind of at a 90, just kind of sitting normally. And eventually, if I keep holding on to the sense, even when I have my hands out here, I'll be able to feel it against my hands. Like this whole space around me is like filling up with this sense where it gets like a little sticky, like magnetic. You could feel it kind of kicking back at you, and while still maintaining like clear thought, no thinking really, and just make the sense your focus. That by the time you start to feel like a magnetic like feeling, like that's, to me, the way it was described to me, that's your energy. And once you're feeling that vibe, like now for me, I like to try to direct it. So from there is when I would start to, once I'm feeling that amount and I'm ready to start projecting, that's where I would use the imagination imagery then. I would switch it to what I'd like it to do. And then as I project the energy out, just like I'm feeling it here, you can feel it out like that. And that's when I would go to make an attempt. And then while I was attempting, I would also be maintaining that imagery and the focus with the energy. It's not all just one idea and you're throwing it out there. The thought isn't doing anything. And I'm not making a move either. What it really is that the energy that I'm sensing and the energy that it is, those two things interact. And when that senses the right feel, if you have the imaginative part keen and you can picture it moving, you can see that well, then it's just a matter of it allowing. I'm not forcing it, I'm not making it. If the energy is at the right feel, frequency, feel, I don't know how to describe that part, but when I know when it has that magnetic feel and you have a clean image and you put that out and they kind of touch, just like you can feel your hand touch here, or you close your eyes, you can feel your hand near your face, you can tell your hand's there. Well, same thing with your sense of sight, can reach out and touch it, and when it reacts to your energy, it just kind of allows, and it's like a kind of dance. And yeah, that's kind of how I'd go about feeling that sense. I know this isn't as long as most of them, but I think because we all have sense, like if you take your time and don't rush these things and don't try to make yourself feel something, just allow yourself the sense. Eventually, even if you just get that sense like a magnet, even just for a second, then it's just a matter of trying it again, getting to it, and then trying to hold into that just a little longer. A few seconds longer, and you slowly build a longer endurance. You can get to where you can feel it quicker. You can stay in that focus longer. And before you know it, there's a comfortability built. And by the time it can get like automatic, then those moments will take your doubt away. Yeah. Now, what another main point I want to say is, like, I know I mainly speak of it in terms of this ball because that's the object I use for this. But I think this is a very universal thing. It's your energy, and you can feel it, and you can direct it, and you can use it into the things, you know, like if you write songs or you do whatever. I think this energy is applicable to whatever it is you do, whatever your passion is. I think you can put this energy into it. It's not using thinking and feeling. It's using sense, and it's learning the parts of you that don't use thinking and feeling. Right? So basically, when you're compiling these scents together, you're creating, or not creating is maybe not the right word. It's, well, you'll see, once you overlap all of your senses, that kind of creates another sense of self. And when you add thought on top of that, well, then you have areas of different consciousness that you can have. And it's like a building, right? Like the foundation of the self, right? When you're on the ground floor, you can see only so far. But when you go up a few floors and you look out the window, you can see further, right? Because you have this heightened view. And, you know, I've never been to the roof, but I'm guessing it's going to be a good view, right? So it's interesting to look at the selves. You know, I like to look at myself that way. I look at everyone that way, actually. Once you see it, you can't not see it. I think people do it all the time, you know. When you're going around doing something and you turn and you look and someone's already looking at you, but somehow you just looked. Yeah, I think their sense of sight touched you Your sense of touch felt their sense of sight, and you looked, bang, right to them. I think we're really sensitive. We just don't really know it. And we'd rather just pawn something off as coincidence and go, and that, because otherwise you'd have to think about it. Right? So I like to think about it. So yeah, that's a little bit into like the sense, and it's fun to play. And I'm just saying, if you practice being clear, and you feel what your senses are already telling you, I'm pretty sure within a little bit of time you'll be able to feel that sense, and you know, by then your curiosity becomes your guide. So yeah, that's how that works. So check it out. I'll have more on the projection soon. Take it easy, guys.